I would like to thank, first of all, Venice for Palestine for this initiative. This initiative is part of worldwide initiatives which civil society is trying to do what states, unfortunately, are not doing at the moment for Palestine. I would like to thank, of course, the public that came to hear us for kind of putting in parentheses the joy of a festival in order to speak about this very difficult issue. And I will explain why I consider that it's a difficult issue to speak about boycott, but especially to consider that, well, in an abnormal situation, we have to act in accordance to the situation. So giving your time, and I'm talking to the public, is a minimum that we can do. Let me first explain what will be kind of my take and the modalities of explanation. If we think about the campaign of boycott, disinvestment, and sanction, which is, as it was explained, it's a campaign that already have 20 years. I think that most of us can understand the notion of economic boycott. I think that most of us will understand what it means to divest in terms of big investment, state investment, corporate investment in the state of Israel. And of course, I imagine that most of us support the notion of sanction, which is the S of BDS, which in fact is related to the possibilities that state have. But there are domains within the campaign that are quite annoying for some of the people that will be open to notions of economic boycott, sanction, and divestment. And one of them, and maybe the most crucial one, is the question of cultural boycott. So, in fact, what I would like to try to do, in order not to be too long, is to try to answer to questions that most of us maybe are asking when it comes to the boycott. But let me start first from something that we might share all together. We're watching now, and this is a new thing, to watch a genocide online in real time. We're watching a colonial oppressive campaign every day through our social medias and traditional medias. And I assume that a lot of us wake up in the morning and ask what we can do, in fact, for that. Seeing that our governments, and I'm talking now about Western governments, I'm based in France, are doing actually not a lot, in order not to say they're doing nothing, which means to do nothing, it's a mode of complicity. So we are waking up in the morning and asking ourselves what actually we can do in order to change the situation. I'm not naive, I'm not utopic, but I believe that if there is something that we can do, is to support the minimum, which is the call that was called by Palestinian civil society, 71 organizations of the Palestinian civil society within occupied Palestine, within the world, calling us to take a real measure of solidarity. So my first answer to the question, what we can do, would be a simple one. What we can do is to join the campaign of boycott. But we are within a frame which is the question of a festival and a cultural boycott. And many people will come and say, and I can understand that, will say, but culture is above politics. Culture do not concern politics. Well, I would like to come and to say absolutely the contrary. If we look today on modalities of cultural production, it's entangled. It's tied totally to willing wishes of state. Most of the money that circulate within cultural domain anyway in Europe, and we are in Europe, is state money. In this regard, the separation between culture and politics is an artificial position. More than that, I would say. I would say the question of culture, when it comes to question of political representation, we just have to look around. Let's have a look, for example, at Cannes Film Festival. And in Cannes Film Festival, we will see, and I assume that in Venice also, films which are in the mind of many of people are above politics are represented through the flag of the production, which means that we have a kind of a completely entangled situation where a film is nationalized by the state. More than that, a film is nationalized by the cultural organization that represents it. I mean, if we take a product, nobody puts in parentheses next to a product saying this product is USA, this product is Israel, this product is this. But if we look on the catalog of Venice, we will see that all the films are represented as if there were national representation. And in this regard, if they are national representation, so it means that the link between politics and culture is something which is positioned by the cultural organization themselves. And here comes the question of the cultural boycott. What it is the campaign of BDS? The campaign of BDS comes out of one idea, which is in a non-normal situation, we are not allowed to act normally. Or I will put it in the words of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which was the Archbishop of Johannesburg, which was a militant against apartheid and the inventor post-apartheid of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and a Nobel Prize. Desmond Tutu tells us one sentence that maybe this will be the basic. He said, in a situation of oppression, to be neutral is always to be on the side of the oppressor. So, neutrality, which is one of the arguments that many people put forward against cultural boycott, to say we have to keep the culture in a neutral situation. In fact, this neutrality is a support to the oppressor. And in this regard, the first act, before even the boycott, is to say we cannot keep neutral in a situation where neutrality benefits the oppression. The campaign, as it was said, the campaign of boycott, disinvestment, and sanction, it is not an anarchic invention by the Palestinians. It is within international law and legality as it was written and articulated by United Nations. By the way, if we look around, we see that BDS, the boycott, the divestment, and the sanction, this is a very banal, very common action among states. You know, there are more than 30 countries today which are on the list of boycott by European Union. There are few dozens of countries which are under boycott or sanction by United Nations, and many others by the United States. And the reasons for the boycott by states, the reasons of disinvestment by state, it is because it's considered as a highly efficient tool of pressure on states. But if we look at the states which are under sanctions, we look at the states which are under the divestment, we will find strangely that Israel is not part of this list. And the reasons are many and complicated, and I won't develop. And as it was said, in the moment that states do not take responsibility and they not use the political tool that they use in many cases, here comes the role of the civil society, of us. Here comes the role of people and citizens in order to impose what our own states are not doing. And I can assure you one thing, if our states, if European Union would use the tool of sanction, use the tool of divestment, we as a civil society can retreat. We can make even a promise. In the day that you impose sanctions, I'm talking about states, we will stop our campaign. Let me now move to concentrate on the question that was asked, which is, what is the difference between censorship and boycott? I think that the first element is that censorship is a tool which is always used when it's used by power. It's never the tool of powerless. And we are the powerless in this situation. Power uses censor in order to silence the possibility of denouncing the action of power itself. This is what is censorship. Censorship is about silencing the ones that are threatening the power. And if we think about censorship, there is a huge censorship today. There is a huge censorship on the Palestinian voice. There is censorship on the Palestinian solidarity. There are laws in many countries that do not allow to demonstrate in this way, or that is using intellectual terror, which is accusing the movement of solidarity with Palestine of anti-Semitism. Those are measures of censorship, which means that as long as we do not have the power, whatever we are doing never can be considered in censorship. It's considered of what? Well, in our case, we're talking about boycott. And it was said, the boycott is under a leadership of the Palestinian civil society, which articulated the modalities of boycott through something which is called the guidelines. And they're very precise guidelines, which explain exactly what are the modalities of boycott, when we can boycott, and when we are not allowed to boycott. One of the principles is, and this is another argument about the difference between censorship of boycott, which is the question of cultural content does not regard the boycott campaign. It's not about the question if this film is a nice, good film that supports the Palestinian or denounce occupation, etc. It's not even if this film, to take the example of film, is a racist film. We are not talking about cultural content, we're talking about modalities of production, which means that the question is, what are the modalities of cultural production? And here we have two ways. One of the things is that we consider within the boycott campaign that taking money from a government that is giving on one side money to buy bullets and bombs, and in the same time gives money for cultural production, this is already a mode of complicity. It is a mode of complicity. It is a mode of complicity because it blurs it blurs the distinction between cultural production and warfare production, which means that the same government that will give the bombs, will buy the bombs, the same government that sent hundreds of thousands of Israeli soldiers today to a genocidal campaign or to an ethnic cleansing campaign, what is going on in the West Bank, for example, in the occupied territories of the West Bank, this same government gives money for cultural production. And we can come in to say, why this government, that on one hand is a genocidal, racist, an apartheid regime, as it was declared by the International Court, and it's not Eyal Sivan's opinion, it's about international legality. Why this government, on one hand, finance a genocide, a colonial regime, and on the other hand, gives money to cultural products, and let's speak about cinema, that many of us will say, but if we look about the Israeli cinema, is mainly kind of a critique cinema, is a kind of a self-critique cinema, is a cinema of good people. Well, we do not care. The question is not about being a good person within the cultural product, is about the question of taking position as a citizen, because we do not separate the question of being citizen and being filmmaker. I won't give the example of Leni Riefenstahl, for example, great filmmaker and a great Nazi person. This separation between the person and the artist, this is exactly a modality that allows to Israeli filmmakers to be soldiers in the morning and filmmakers against occupation in the afternoon. The engagement is not a question of the engagement in the content of the film. The engagement is the engagement of the ethics of production. And let me allow to quote Jean-Luc Godard, which is saying the question is not about making a political film, but it is about making films politically. What it means making film politically? Making film politically is about the idea that, first of all, I am a citizen, then I am an artist. And in this regard, the BDS calls to do two modalities of boycott. I will explain myself. First, there is the question of going to Israel, to festival, Jerusalem Film Festival, Tel Aviv, Doc Aviv, students, Tel Aviv University Film Festival, etc., etc. Going to Israel in this situation, which is a non-normal situation, to go to the festival, to show my film as a foreigner, to go to cocktails, to have parties, this means to normalize a non-normal situation. And the idea of the boycott is to denormalize the state of Israel, which means that our aim is that the Israeli flag won't appear anymore in Cannes, won't appear anymore in Venice, because we don't want to be part and together with a state which is a racist, colonial, and a genocidal state. Which means that going to Israel, to a film festival, going to Israel to show my film, and to meet kind of good people is to give the impression that there is something normal in the non-normality. So first and above all is the idea of denormalize Israel in our attitude. We don't show films in Israel. We don't go to show films in institutions which are accomplished by the fact that they belong to the same government, which is the genocidal government. So this is the first thing. It's about our participation from abroad. I will even make it strong. The biggest distributor of films in Israel 80% of the foreign films that are being shown in Israel are by one distributor, the biggest distributor. This distributor, which is the company United Kings, is led by one of the biggest supporters of Netanyahu. This is one. And also it happened to be that the president of this distribution company, the distribute international films in Israel, he is president and financier of a film festival in the occupied territory, which is illegal from point of view of international legality. So it's not just about showing my films in film festival in Israel, it's also about selling my film to a distribution company that the head of that company is a supporter of somebody that, as you know, he is researched today by the International Justice Court for genocide. So a person, an international artist that goes to Israel, that shows his film of Israel, or even a distribution company that will sell their films to this company in Israel, from the point of view of BDS, the campaign and the guideline, can be boycotted abroad, which means I'm going to Israel, I'm showing my film, I'm coming back to Italy, and I can be boycotted on the base of complicity with organizations that belong to the same big mafia organization that we call the State of Israel. So this is when it comes to artists from abroad. Now there is the question, and the very difficult question, which is the question of the boycott of cultural product coming from Israel. And in this regard, the guidelines are absolutely clear. I've said, we do not look at the content of the cultural product. We don't care if the film is a nice, good film that denounces, for example, settlement. This is not the question. We don't look if that actual film is a film that is supporting the government. We are looking at the modalities of the production, and we are looking at the positioning of the cultural actors in regard of the situation. What it means? It means that if I'm today, as an Israeli maker, uses government money by the Israeli embassy in Italy, for example, in order to finance my ticket, in order to finance the transport of my crew to an international film festival, I am immediately under boycott. Why? Because in this moment, I'm stopping to be just a cultural actor. I'm becoming an ambassador. I am allowing the state to stamp my position as a position of representative of the state. What we are looking through the boycott campaign is to put a split, to cut relations between cultural actors and the state, which means we are asking cultural actors to take position about the state. Taking position, which means is to denounce state politics and to be solidar with the Palestinians through the boycott campaign. You will come and you will tell me, but how it's possible if I'm a filmmaker to cut my ties with the state? Well, it happened to be that Israel, which is not a democracy, Israel is an apartheid state. When it comes to Israeli Jews, it is a democracy. There is no censorship on Israeli Jews in Israel. There is no censorship and there is no danger on Israeli Jewish filmmakers. Why? Because it's apartheid state and because we, included me, we belong to the white part of the society. So if there is no censorship, and if I'm not in danger, and I am not taking position clearly, it means that I am immediately in the side of the complicity. So it's not a situation, for example, of countries like, I don't know, Iran, that if you as a filmmaker, you take position, you are in danger. The contrary, what there is a modality of censorship, which is the biggest censorship in Israel, it's the self-censorship of the cultural actors that refuse to take position. Why? In order to belong to the Israeli tribe and to get advantages of the privilege that gives an apartheid society always to the white part. What we are trying through the boycott campaign, this is my understanding, is to jeopardize the privilege of the most privileged, which are the Israeli filmmakers, for example. But you can come and to say, to put pressure on these good people, to put pressure on the cultural production might radicalize the state of Israel and might radicalize them. Should I remind that there is no need to radicalize? I mean, after more than 60,000 people killed, almost 20,000 kids being massacred in Gaza, with more than 12,000 prisoners, political prisoners in the state, what kind of radicality the state of Israel can take because we are putting them on pressure? The contrary. The BDS is about sending a message to the Israeli society and to the civil society. If you want to be considered as part of the normal international family of states, you have to take position, which is a position of humanism against tribalism. And this is the message of BDS, which means stop acting without the tribe, within the tribe, because the tribe takes from you the possibility to belong to something which is bigger, which is the international scene. I want to take another position, which is the question that is being raised by many people which oppose the boycott, or people which are kind of open but they're hesitating and saying, but culture, the world of culture is the world of dialogue. It allows to dialogue between diverse opinion and positions, etc. Well, we are not anymore in a position of dialogue. We have to consider that today we are in a position of a struggle. It's not about being in a dialogue in order to normalize. It's about being in a struggle. But the BDS gives us a possibility which is fantastic. By joining the BDS, by pushing Israeli cultural actors to join the BDS, we are building a platform where dialogue is on the base of equality and common humanity. Because there is no dialogue between oppressors and oppressed. There is no dialogue between privileged and people who don't have rights. This is a dialogue, and this sends us back to what Desmond Tutu said. This gives advantage always to the oppressor side. I would like to finish this part, and I'm ready to ask to get any question from the public, which is the question of the efficiency. People say, look, finally, the only thing which is really efficient in international relation will be sanction and divestment. But in what regards cultural boycott can be efficient? What is the efficiency? Well, what we are trying to do through the campaign, or let me say it in a more fair way, what the Palestinian civil society is trying to do within, and by articulating this campaign, which has already 20 years, is to push the Israeli civil society to take a standpoint, by considering in a maybe even liberal way to wait two things. What will be my advantage of one hand to continue to benefit from the privilege of the cultural production within Israel? And what will be my position if I am taking a position with the Palestinian and with what is the growing up today solidarity with Palestine? So the idea is to attack the notion of privilege by itself. This is one. But as it was said in the introduction, it is Israel, the state of Israel, for many years, historically, is using the cultural product, is using the position which is sometimes a position of opposition of cultural actors in order to build a vitrine of respectability and the vitrine of a democracy. So I'm saying it clearly. BDS, it is a stone that we are throwing in order to break this vitrine of respectability. We want to show that this mask of respectability, it is a tool of propaganda that uses many Israeli good people in order to put the mask of the respectability. What we are asking them is take out the mask and break the mask of the state. This is the notion of BDS. When it will end, when BDS will end, what are the limits? Well, this is the guidelines. We have 3 points, which are: one, which is to stop the apartheid regime. Second is the acceptance, it's the retreat from all occupied territories. Third is the acceptation of international legality, which means international law, and all United Nations resolution and Security Council, including Resolution 194, which is the return of the Palestinian refugees that were expelled during the ethnic cleansing from Palestine in 1948. At that moment, the reintegration and the acceptance of international law will be the end of the campaign of BDS. Well, I would like to put a last point. You heard me. You heard me. I'm Israeli through passport. Sure, I have in the last years also another passport. Here I'm speaking to you publicly in a public space. It's even being filmed. It might be diffused. Well, I can assure you that I have no risk whatsoever. If I have no risk whatsoever, it is because of the nature of the Israeli regime, as I said, is an apartheid regime. So if I can take position, all what we are asking is, obviously you take position, and more than that, you can push your Israeli friends or your Israeli co-producer or your Israeli partners to take a minimum of position, knowing that they risk nothing. Thank you very much.